met David for 15 minutes, had a conversation, a very mild, light conversation. He thought he was very sweet. And I think he's, Christine has chosen him, so I think...
A graduation, a photo of herself pregnant with McKelty. All seemingly innocent snapshots that hold a world of pain behind the smiles. What viewers didn't realize was that beneath these smiling moments lay the seeds of resentment and heartbreak.
Cody feels about any of it at all, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But watching the two of them, they'll be fine. They'll be kind in each other's presence and stuff. Yeah.
Rumor or a scripted fight that blew the lid off this illusion. It was Christine finally telling the story behind the story. She was alone in a hospital room in labor, suffering from dangerously low blood pressure with her miracle baby on the way after a miscarriage. But the man who promised to be her partner was not by her side. He wasn't stuck in traffic or caught up in another emergency. He had gone to check on Robin, his fiancée at the time. That decision would echo through their marriage for years. The cameras may have filmed her contractions and eventual delivery, but they missed the betrayal that left Christine gutted. Cody prioritized Robin's emotions over Christine's medical emergency. As Christine recalls, she was in labor, scared and in pain, and Cody had to be summoned by her not because he was busy saving someone's life, but because he was busy kissing another woman. This wasn't speculation. The cameras actually caught Cody and Robin sharing a secret kiss as he left to visit her, a kiss he tried to hide behind a partially open door. He was laughing, knowing his wife was in labor while he was making time for his girlfriend. Cody's behavior wasn't just tone-deaf, it was cruel. In a time when Christine needed comfort, Cody turned into a different man entirely. Instead of holding her hand and staying focused on the birth of their child, he took the opportunity to ask the doctor about IVF treatments for Meri, a completely unrelated topic that made Christine feel invisible in her most vulnerable moment. Christine wasn't just hurt. She was erased from the equation of her own labor. This wasn't about being a plural husband. It was about being emotionally absent. Christine's book doesn't use anger as a weapon. Instead, it presents the quiet devastation of being dismissed by someone you love. The contrast becomes even starker when you see how Cody behaved with Robin's pregnancy a year later. He was by her side, constantly doting, supportive, and protective. Christine couldn't help but see the double standard. She remembers feeling abandoned, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Her marriage began to feel like a contract. She had signed without fully understanding the fine print that Cody's love and attention were not equally divided. Season 19 of Sister Wives didn't just dredge up these old wounds, it blew them wide open. Christine, Janelle, and Meri were no longer silent. And Cody. He wasn't remorseful, he was defensive. The tell-all interviews revealed more than edited episodes ever could. Cody played the misunderstood martyr, but Christine exposed the truth that love was never evenly shared, and that favoritism was not just a feeling, it was a pattern. The image of Christine alone in the hospital, blood pressure dropping, pain rising and fear settling in her bones, while Cody laughed with Robin in a different house, has become symbolic. It's not just symbolic of that specific day, it's a reflection of the years Christine lived in quiet heartbreak, pretending that everything was okay for the sake of the family, the kids, and the cameras. What made it worse was that Christine had to be the one to reach out. She had to make the phone call, summon him back, and ask him to show up for her. And when he finally did, he didn't act like a concerned husband rushing to his wife's side. Instead, he treated her labor as a convenient moment to discuss someone else's fertility. The silence of that moment, the emotional distance, and the coldness of Cody's priorities painted a clear picture. Christine may have been one of several wives, but she had become optional in Cody's eyes, and no one else in the family could deny it anymore. Fans have debated this moment for years. Some tried to defend Cody, suggesting he just needed to grab his bag. But Christine's question lingers in the air. If his family was already going to the hospital, why couldn't someone else bring the bag? Why did he need to take that detour to Robin's home in the first place? It wasn't about logistics. It was about emotional priority. And in that moment, Christine wasn't the priority. Robin was. That moment fractured something deep within Christine. It changed her marriage, her faith in their family structure, and eventually it shifted the entire course of her life. The kiss Cody shared with Robin, captured awkwardly on camera, wasn't just a betrayal of Christine. It was a betrayal of the plural marriage ideal they had promised the world. It proved that emotional monogamy existed within a supposed plural marriage. Christine had spent years building a life around shared love, mutual sacrifice, and equal partnership. And in a single painful chapter, she saw that dream fall apart. Fast forward to season 19. The tell-all interviews were supposed to offer closure, but instead they served as a mirror, a painful, unfiltered reflection of the truths Christine, Janelle, and Meri had carried silently for years. And the questions weren't hypothetical anymore. They were personal, raw, and deeply revealing. Christine had moved on. Her new relationship with David Woolley was just a rebound, it was a reclamation of self-worth. And when clips of Christine laughing and embracing David were shown to Cody during his interview, the contrast was striking. Christine finally looked free, at peace, truly loved. Cody, sitting with interviewer Suki Krishnan, initially claimed he was happy for Christine. He said he respected her ability to find love again. But his next words betrayed him. He called their 25-year marriage a good time experience, diminishing the pain, the effort, and the years of emotional neglect Christine endured. That cold dismissal sent a wave of backlash across the fan base. For a man who had fathered her children and shared decades of life, calling their bond a good time wasn't just disrespectful, it was cruel. It showed that Cody had already rewritten the past in his mind, brushing aside the reality of what Christine endured. But Christine wasn't letting that go. Her memoir wasn't revenge, it was release. It was an honest accounting of what she lived through. She wasn't asking for pity, she was demanding truth. And the truth was that Cody didn't lose Christine because she changed. He lost her because he refused to change. While Christine was learning to love herself, Cody was stuck defending a version of the past that never existed. In the memoir, Christine describes her marriage to Cody as one-sided. She gave, he took, she stayed, he wandered. And when she needed him most during the traumatic birth of their daughter, he wasn't there. That's not a misunderstanding. That's abandonment. David Woolley enters Christine's story not as a savior, but as a partner. He validates her truth without trying to overshadow it. During the tell-all, David openly said what many had only whispered: Christine had been starved of love. Her emotional needs were ignored, minimized, and dismissed for years. And now she wasn't settling anymore. The difference between Cody and David was obvious. Cody loved the role of patriarch. David just loved Christine. That sincerity touched not only Christine, but her children as well. Isabel, her daughter, publicly acknowledged that her mother was finally receiving the emotional intimacy she had always wanted. The family began to heal not through denial or revision, but through honesty. Meanwhile, Cody and Robin remained frozen in time, stuck in a narrative that no longer fit. Meri was rebuilding her life. Janelle was reconnecting with her children. Christine was moving forward, but Cody and Robin, they were trapped in a defensive loop, circling the same old justifications and excuses. Cody used to claim he fought for his plural marriages, but the truth was coming to light: he only fought for the version of family that kept him comfortable. And once that comfort was challenged, he rewrote history. Christine's book exposed that, rewriting for what it was: evasion. As her book began to gain traction, something unexpected happened. Christine's voice inspired others to speak. Her children, once silent for the sake of the show, began to open up. The next generation of Browns, who had smiled on camera for years, were now peeling back the layers of what really happened behind closed doors. On private podcasts, Instagram stories, and subtle social media posts, a new pattern emerged. They had always known the truth. They had just been told not to say it. They remember the way Cody would walk into a room and go straight to Robin. They remember meals where he wouldn't even greet them after days of absence. They remember their mother crying quietly, then smiling in public for the cameras. It was Isabel's heartbreaking comment that first went viral. She said, "We never had a father, just a man who visited." That line cut deep. It wasn't just about Cody. It was about the collapse of the illusion that had propped up sister wives for so many years. And the fans responded. They weren't just watching anymore, they were feeling it. Christine's book wasn't just a memoir. It was a reckoning, and it was only just beginning. As the waves from Christine's memoir rippled across social media, the illusion of the Brown family as a strong, united, faith-driven clan began to crumble. But the most unexpected voices to join the reckoning weren't former wives or online critics. They were the children, the ones who had spent their formative years growing up on camera, told to smile, to keep peace, and to never speak against the family narrative. Now, as adults, they were finding their voices, and what they had to say struck even deeper than anything Christine had written. In subtle podcast interviews, live streams, and cryptic Instagram posts, the pattern began to form. Cody's emotional absence wasn't just felt by the wives, it had permeated into the lives of his children. Gwendolyn, for instance, posted a now-deleted story that read, "We all knew. We just couldn't say it." That sentence alone traveled like wildfire, reposted across fan accounts, discussion boards, and TikTok commentary videos. Her message was clear: the kids saw everything. The pain wasn't hidden behind the scenes as much as it had been actively suppressed. Peyton, always outspoken, took it a step further. During a live Q&A, he told fans, "You guys don't even know the half of it. What you saw on the show, that wasn't even the worst." He called Christine's book a starting point, not the full story. And that's when fans realized the real truth wasn't just about Cody's favoritism toward Robin. It was about years of spiritual manipulation, emotional gaslighting, and selective parenting. These were kids who had grown up watching their mother sacrifice everything while their father showed up when the cameras were rolling, and sometimes not even then. The children weren't the supporting cast in a family drama. They were the emotional collateral. And as they began speaking out, the audience started to understand that the harm went far deeper than Cody had ever admitted. Backstage, things were no calmer. According to insiders close to the show's production, Cody was growing increasingly agitated. He had once held tight control over the narrative, the misunderstood patriarch doing his best to juggle multiple relationships. But now that image was under siege, and he wasn't taking it well. One insider claimed Cody had been pressuring TLC producers to reframe the story. "They're making me look like I abandoned everyone," he reportedly said. "But I had 4 wives. I was stretched thin. That's not abandonment, that's just math." But fans weren't buying it. The old excuses were no longer enough. They had watched too many tell-alls, too many dodged questions, too many half-hearted apologies followed by quick pivots to blaming Christine, Janelle, or Meri. The audience was tired of seeing Cody spin every conflict into a tale of his own victimhood, and the network seemed to know it. With ratings climbing thanks to the rawness of Christine's revelations, TLC producers weren't interested in sugarcoating anymore. The viewers didn't want the perfect plural family anymore. They wanted the truth. And Christine, backed by an overwhelming surge of public support, was the one telling it. What she had once been told to keep quiet about the labor betrayal, the emotional neglect, the unequal love, was now being welcomed with open arms by millions of viewers who had silently suspected it all along. In fact, the network was now considering an entire spin-off based on her new life, potentially titled Christine's Truth. A fresh start not just for her, but for the narrative itself. Christine wouldn't be the footnote in Cody's story anymore. She would be the main character of her own. And then came the next major shift, the second tell-all special. This wasn't going to be a routine reunion. The stakes were higher than ever. Tension buzzed backstage. Meri arrived first calm, but clearly protective of her space. Janelle entered next with 2 of her children, a quiet, powerful statement of solidarity. Then Christine walked in. She didn't bring an entourage or any anger, just a soft green blouse, a quiet smile, and a small copy of her book. She placed it on the table beside her, not as a weapon, but as a symbol. That story had already been told. She didn't need to argue anymore. She had spoken her truth. Robin entered last, shrouded in black, her face half concealed behind large sunglasses. Her demeanor wasn't confrontational, it was defensive. When asked directly about Christine's memoir, Robin didn't raise her voice. She simply whispered, "I don't know why she's doing this. We all had hard times, but dragging it out now, it hurts the children." That one sentence sent chills through the room. And Christine, who had spent decades biting her tongue, finally let go. Her response was calm, direct, and devastating. "No, Robin. What hurt the children was pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. What hurt them was watching their mother cry behind closed doors and smile in public. What hurt them was watching their father show up for some and not for others. What I'm doing now. This is healing. This is truth. The studio fell silent. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. That moment, so sharp, so clear, became the clip that exploded across social media. Christine's poise, her command of the moment, and her unwavering resolve painted her not as a bitter ex-wife, but as a woman finally setting the record straight. Cody, who had been watching from the green room, couldn't stay silent any longer. He stormed into the studio. "You think you're the only one who sacrificed?" he spat at Christine. "You all act like I had it easy, like I didn't suffer." Christine didn't even blink. "You suffered from the consequences, Cody. We suffered because of your decisions." That line, delivered with surgical precision, made the front page of every major entertainment outlet the next day. The hashtags #Dabarschard Christine Speaks and Charcody Consequences tour were trending by sunset. Social media lit up with reactions. TikTok creators stitched together Cody's old interviews with quotes from Christine's memoir, highlighting every contradiction, every deflection, every moment when Cody gaslit his wives and claimed victimhood. One top creator unearthed a 2015 clip where Cody mocked Christine's emotional breakdown, once dismissed by fans as playful teasing. But in the light of the new book, it became a disturbing example of just how callous Cody had been. The response was swift. Fans who had once been neutral were now squarely in Christine's corner. And then came the bombshell that no one expected. Hunter Brown, one of the quieter Brown children, uploaded a video to his private YouTube channel. Sitting in a simple room, speaking calmly and without dramatic music or flashy edits, he said, "There's a difference between being a father and just holding the title. Many of us were raised without knowing what a healthy relationship even looked like. Christine did more for all of us than most people will ever realize. I saw her carry pain she didn't deserve." The video racked up over 3 million views in 72 hours. Even Christine seemed overwhelmed by the response. She posted a follow-up video, her eyes misty. "I didn't write this book to hurt anyone," she said. "I wrote it to finally be free. And I hope it helps someone else do the same." Meanwhile, back at TLC headquarters, the executives had seen enough. The days of centering the show around Cody's attempts to justify himself were over. The network didn't want to rehabilitate his image. They wanted the story as it was raw, real, and led by the voices who had finally broken free. Cody's protests only made things worse. "You're erasing the real patriarch," he complained in one behind-the-scenes summit. But no one was listening. Because the truth was out. Christine wasn't the villain. She was the survivor. And the audience had made it clear whose side they were on. By the time filming resumed for what producers labeled the final sit-down, the atmosphere on set had entirely changed. Gone was the carefully curated illusion of unity. Gone was the pressure to protect Cody's image. This wasn't about sister wives. Anymore, this was about truth. The wives weren't there to perform. They were there to speak. Christine, seated between Janelle and Meri, no longer looked like the woman who had once pleaded quietly for emotional breadcrumbs. Her posture was confident, her tone even. Meri, often guarded, showed signs of subtle alignment with the truth-tellers. Janelle sat calmly but alert, her energy exuding a quiet strength. All three women had endured years under the same system, a system that promised love and equality but delivered silence and separation. Across from them sat Cody Brown, arms crossed, eyes defiant, his face a storm of unreadable emotion. Once the charismatic patriarch who held the family and the camera's attention, he now looked like a man cornered. Not by producers, not by fans, but by the unavoidable weight of his own choices. Robin sat beside him, hands clamped tightly in her lap, her presence ghost-like. The host didn't waste time with small talk. She asked one question and let it land like a hammer on the table. "If you could go back and speak to yourself at the beginning of this journey, what would you say?" It wasn't a loaded question. It was an invitation to reflect, but it felt like judgment. Christine answered first. She took a deep breath and said with unwavering clarity, "I would tell myself not to confuse sacrifice with love, and not to wait for someone to notice your value. You need to notice it yourself first." Janelle nodded solemnly. Meri's eyes welled up with emotion. Robin looked down. And Cody? He said nothing. The silence was deafening. Because sometimes the absence of words says more than any monologue ever could. But the conversation didn't end there. The real earthquake came moments later when the topic of the children resurfaced. For years, the Brown kids had been silent Cody. Stars smiling for photos, avoiding drama, playing along. But now as adults, their truths had begun to leak. And those truths had cut deeper than any tabloid headline. From Gwendolyn's cryptic posts, to Peden's livestream comments, to Hunter's emotional video, the children were reclaiming their voice. And with every word, they chipped away at Cody's carefully managed persona. Christine had once feared telling her story would make her look bitter. Instead, it had unleashed a wave of testimonies that made clear she had been far from alone in her pain. The host referenced one viral moment, Isabel's viral quote, "We never had. Just a man who visited." The entire room froze. Cody flinched. Robin's eyes widened. Christine didn't gloat. She simply nodded. Because she knew her daughter had finally said what she herself hadn't been able to admit for years. It wasn't just her marriage that had been neglected. It was their children's sense of stability, of worth, of presence. Cody began to defend himself. He said he did his best. He claimed he was stretched thin, that no one could have met the expectations placed on him. But the excuses landed differently now. They no longer sounded reasonable. They sounded hollow. Then came the most defining exchange of the entire series. Cody turned to Christine and said, "You all act like I didn't love you." Christine didn't get angry. She didn't cry. She simply said, "We're not questioning whether you felt something. We're questioning whether you showed up when it mattered." Janelle followed with, "Love without action isn't love, it's comfort." And Meri added quietly, "And sometimes comfort for one is pain for another." These weren't sound bites. They were confessions. And they revealed a truth that had long been hidden beneath plural marriage ideology, that emotional absence wears the face of duty until you look close enough. Back at TLC headquarters, the reaction to the footage was immediate. Executives, editors, and PR staff realized that this wasn't just another season finale. This was a cultural reset. The fans didn't want polished soundtracks and birthday parties anymore. They wanted healing, real closure, and raw humanity. Christine's story had given them that. And her book, it had gone viral. Not just in bookstores, but on every major digital platform. Quotes were being shared like gospel. Don't confuse sacrifice with love. You suffered from consequences. We suffered from decisions. Entire Reddit threads were dedicated to dissecting every word. Robin, meanwhile, had become a symbol of selective silence. She hadn't made public statements. She hadn't lashed out. But her refusal to engage, to acknowledge her place in the imbalance, had started to feel less like grace and more like denial. During the tell-all, when asked about her role in Cody's favoritism, she had only said, "I didn't ask for this." And Christine, calm as ever, responded, "But you didn't stop it either." That single moment, that line, created a digital tsunami. Fans began going back to old footage, analyzing Robin's reactions, watching for patterns. And what they found was hard to unsee. Christine wasn't calling for revenge. She was modeling release. In post-tell-all interviews, she spoke of moving forward, of healing with David, of co-parenting with boundaries, of learning to let go of things she once believed were sacred. Her fans, many of them women who had endured their own emotional erasures, rallied behind her. Christine wasn't just a reality star anymore. She was a symbol, a reminder that truth isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just consistent. As Christine's public presence grew, the network began floating new ideas. A docuseries, a memoir-based adaptation, a full spin-off where Christine would mentor other women in similar situations. Janelle expressed openness to joining. Even Meri seemed cautiously interested. But one thing was certain, Cody wouldn't be the center anymore. And that terrified him. He told producers, "You're rewriting the legacy of this family." But the truth was, Christine wasn't rewriting anything. She was just finally reading the pages out loud. Pages everyone had been told not to open. Then came the unexpected follow-up from David Woolley. In a joint video with Christine, he opened up not about Cody, but about love. He said, "I didn't come into Christine's life to fix anything. I came in because she's someone I respect, someone I admire, and I just wanted to be a safe place for her." The video wasn't dramatic. It was warm, understated, and deeply moving, and it became one of the most shared sister wives related clips of all time. Not because it attacked Cody, but because it showed what real mutual respect looks like. In response, Cody posted a rare video of his own. Short, tense, defensive. He said, "Everyone thinks I was never there. That's not true. I showed up when I could." But the damage was done. The narrative had moved on without him, and now the audience wasn't looking to see him defended. They were looking to see him accountable. Because Christine's story wasn't just about her. It had become a mirror for every viewer who had once felt forgotten, silenced, or small. In the end, the story of Christine Brown wasn't just about leaving a marriage. It was about reclaiming a voice that had been silenced for too long. It was about standing up not in anger but in truth. She didn't scream. She didn't throw accusations. She wrote. She remembered. And she spoke. And in doing so, she sparked a reckoning that the entire Sister Wives universe could no longer ignore. What began as a memoir became a movement. One woman's choice to finally stop pretending everything was fine gave others, her children, her co-wives, her audience, the strength to do the same. The legacy of Sister Wives, once built on the promise of love shared equally now, stood as a cautionary tale about what happens when faith is used to excuse favoritism, when commitment masks control, and when leadership demands loyalty but gives little in return. Christine's departure wasn't the collapse of a family. It was the revelation of what had already been broken. Her words didn't destroy the illusion. They simply removed the filter. And as the dust settled, what remained wasn't bitterness. It was clarity. Christine found peace not through revenge, but through release. Through showing up for herself after years of being shown last. Through loving her children loudly and consistently. Through building something real with a man who saw her not as a burden or obligation, but as a partner. The final scenes of the tell-all didn't end with Cody in triumph or Christine in tears. They ended with truth. Raw, unequivocal, and powerful. The camera lingered on the faces of those who had once played roles in a script written by someone else. Now they were rewriting it themselves. The real story wasn't about a man and his 4 wives. It was about women discovering they were never supposed to settle for a fraction of love. It was about daughters realizing that strength doesn't mean staying silent. It was about healing not from plural marriage, but from being invisible in plain sight. Cody Brown, once the centerpiece of a carefully controlled narrative, now stands on the outside of his own story. His refusal to confront the full weight of his choices, his insistence on respinning the past, only isolated him further. Because the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to stand. And Christine did that. With grace, with dignity, and with an honesty that reshaped how millions viewed not just her, but themselves. The silence has been broken. The wounds named. And the women once framed as supporting characters have stepped into the light. Christine Brown didn't just walk away. She walked toward something greater. And in doing so, she gave us all permission to do the same.